2023 was truly a year. Wacky, wild, and obviously filled with games. If you haven't seen one of these videos before, well, welcome! I made it a thing these past 2 years to talk about the games I've played, and I'm here to do it again. Since I can't stick to a format for this series, we'll be covering the first half of the year in this video, from January to June of 2023. There will also be light spoilers for the games I mentioned, so proceed with caution. But without further ado, the first game I beat this year was a game I started and beat within a month. That being Yakuza 4. I wasn't terribly sure what to expect here. While I had heard opinions on the first 4 games of my journey, Yakuza 4 was one that was pretty tight-lipped among my friends. But suffice to say, the game wowed me. Multiple protagonists were back in the spotlight, or more so, they were introduced here. Dang release dates. And I'll briefly give my opinions on each of them. Akiyama is a very pretty man, and you cannot tell me otherwise. But being serious, he was a pleasure to meet and play as. While his character can be hit and miss at times, I enjoyed him greatly. Tanimura was a nice addition to the cast, even if this is the only time we see him. I'd love to see him return, but at the same time, his character arc here felt the most complete. Not to mention playing as him was, difficult at times. Kiryu, as always, was a solid character. His presence in the story is kinda there to make it more of a Yakuza game in a sense. He did end up having the best final boss in the game, so there's that. But when Saejima was revealed to be a protagonist, I freaked out. For a bit of background, I noticed way back in Yakuza 0 whenever Saejima's name was dropped. From the context that was given, I knew he was Majima's twin brother, so I was a bit confused why he wasn't important to the story when, in the other half of the game, Kiryu and Nishiki had such an important dynamic. Therefore, at some point between finishing 0 and finishing Kiwami 2, I'd theorized that he'd come back in a later game as a major character. To find out I was completely correct was so worth it. I went nuts. Although, I will mention that I had him pinned as an antagonist in one of those games. Not what he was, at all. The final boss gauntlet was pretty genius, even though the last one took me too long. And while the story was pretty silly, it was a good kind of silly. I really enjoyed my time here. To this day, it's still my top 5 Yakuza games, and this adventure definitely made me excited to start the next one in the near future. Now, if the Yakuza series was a sandwich, and I had to add what I thought Yakuza 4 would represent, then I would add 4 pieces of bread. Although I think we lost a piece of cheese or something from the other games, I'm not sure what happened. Though you can't complain much about this game when it also gave us Machine Gun Kiss, the best karaoke song. Next up isn't really a game per se, but over my spring break I got the opportunity to visit Super Nintendo World. I technically put the Mario Kart attraction on the list because I got the stamp for getting the highest individual score among the people I raced with. But just the experience of being there made me feel like a kid again. The music, the little references, hell, even waiting in line for the rides was fun, just because I got to look around the whole park. This kind of thing was what I would have been ecstatic about way back when, and I probably would have begged my parents to take me. But I'm glad I got to experience that at all during my life. It really is a dream come true for my inner child. You've probably seen a video or 3 about this place, so I'll spare you any more details. But if you told 7-year-old me that I'd get a picture with Mario and Luigi one day, I wouldn't believe you. Next up was Fallen Order, a game that I had, again, heard was good, but knew next to nothing about. I'm definitely more of a casual Star Wars fan, as I've only seen the movies, and my memory of said movies is a bit splotchy. However, I still had a great time with the game. Cal Kestis was a compelling protagonist, and it was honestly nice to see virtually none of the legacy characters, as they were saved for moments of impact that make you sweat. For once, he aided something good. Fallen Order was also my first Soulsborne style game, and, well, it was hard as balls. I died. A lot. But the combat felt really good. The controls were very responsive when my controller wasn't acting up, and it made all the bosses a fun time. All in all, it's super solid, and it made me interested in the sequel coming out shortly after I beat it. But I have another journey to finish first. After coming back to Earth, I somehow beat Yakuza 5 in less than 6 weeks. Which, for the length of Yakuza 5, combined with, I don't know, school? That was a lot. I still really enjoyed it though. The plot was hella convoluted this go around, but it was still pretty intriguing to see where these characters went after the events of 4. Although I did get spoiled on Majima not being dead, but my friends almost gaslit me into thinking he could actually have been dead. So, good on you guys? Either way, it was a lot of me going, he's not dead, right? Until the very end of the game. Tanimura gets traded out for Shinada, who's just so fun. He's silly, he has the best part in the game, just RGG, bring back Shinada, please. Fans will thank you. Also due to, well, the name, there is a fifth protagonist, and it's Haruka. She has rhythm games, which makes my heart happy, and her dynamic with Akiyama is amazing to see. I want more of it. Overall, 5 was definitely an interesting time, but I wasn't sure where the series would go after this game. Only time will tell. But if I had to add Yakuza 5 to the Yakuza sandwich, I'd add a piece of bread. But then eventually take it back and add a piece of French toast instead. After beating Yakuza 5 and the absolute blast of a weekend that was MomoCon 2023, I was reminded that free DLC for one of my favorite games got released. The Wonderful 1, After School Hero, was a quick little adventure with Luca. Look, I really didn't like Luca in The Wonderful 101. It had been almost 4 years since I'd played the base game, but he just felt whiny and not fun to be around until the end of the game. Part of me was worried about him being a protagonist, but this DLC actually made me like Luca. I was wholly surprised. Now with this fresh perspective on this character, I really wanted to play the base game again, but that's for future me to worry about, because it's time for Dear God! I found Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 on sale back in April, and used it as a bit of a relaxing game in between Fallen Order and Yakuza 5 play sessions. I had enjoyed the first game, and the second one was a great improvement. The story mode was really fun, even if it was a bit of a rehash at some points. And as this game's selling point, the gameplay was as fun as the original, and I found myself liking most modes. Even if I wasn't the best at Puyo Puyo, I still enjoyed my time here, and I still play this game on occasion with friends. I can't wait to see these fun characters again, like Lemris, Sig, and T, my boy, who is a yee. So here's something that you probably won't believe. I was already planning out this game log during 2023. At the rate I was beating games, I had 5 games beat, and it was June. Yeah, we're already in the 6th month. I remember looking at the script at the start of June, expecting 1 or 2 more games to be added. I looked at the end of the month and, the number of games more than doubled. Well, 2 things happened between the start and the end of the month, but we need a bit of context first. As evident by the videos, I was working on getting caught up on the Yakuza series, but at my own pace. That pace was essentially having 1 game buffer out each entry in the series, so that each game was fresh and new. This would allow me to finish out the series somewhat quickly, possibly by early next year. But due to both the summer announcements of new games, and social media accounts not knowing the word spoilers, I made a choice out of determination and slight annoyance. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the game I was almost spoiled on a shit ton, was set to come out in November of 2023. My goal? Catch up on the series before that game was released. This may sound like an easy task. I had roughly 5 months to beat 4 games. But one of those games was a JRPG, and was commonly touted as the longest in the series. Not to mention, I had other games I wanted to play, other responsibilities to attend to, and once school hit again in the fall, I had no idea how much free time I would have. So, would I be able to get caught up that quickly? Well, I couldn't just sit around and dawdle, so I booted it up and beat the next game, Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. The finale to Kiryu's saga was definitely a ride, to say the least. Kiryu's now in his late 40s, and seeing both the world calm old, and also Kiryu being so done with serious shenanigans was hilarious. Even though he'd still fall into decade-old habits. Damn it, Kiryu! Either way, the story still remained the Yakuza standard, but I think it's a bit weaker than most. This was touted to be the finale of Kiryu, but more than half the cast were newcomers to the series. This coupled with legacy characters such as Ijima's barely being in the game, and for a finale, it just felt a bit off. However, 6 gave me an unexpected surprise. Another favorite character of the series here. The lucky one this time was Yuta, and I can't really explain why this guy attached to my heart, but he did. He's fun. I like him. This is also the only Yakuza game at the time of recording this that I cried to twice. The first was more of a realization when sitting through the first credits. I had been actively playing RPG games, more specifically the Kiryu Saga, for 2.5 years. In that time, a lot had happened in my personal life, and it felt like I was so fundamentally different from the person I was at the start of Yakuza 0. So, in a way, it was hard saying goodbye. This was a story I was with for so long, so to see it concluded definitely hit me hard. The second time was when Daigo got his letter. Just stop. I'm already not okay, and then you do this to me? Anyway, if I had to add Yakuza 6 to the Yakuza sandwich, it'd be a complete peanut butter and jelly. As a bit of a palate cleanser and emotional break, I played Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed alongside 6, and it was a good time. While I have a few thoughts, many of them relating to these two, I'll save those for another time and go over the highlights. I really liked the areas in this game. It's more of the same from 3, but the area mashups here were awesome, and the final area was definitely my favorite. The music also slaps, especially the battle theme and final area theme. I also got blindsided by old music in some of these areas, which almost made me tear up. The side quests were super fun, giving some nice development for the core cast since their story is pretty short. Future Redeemed also keeps up the trend of me preferring the combat of the DLC to the base game. Yeah, even with 3's roguelite mode. What can I say, streamlining the drive combos really goes a long way. The story was still the Xenoblade standard, although I feel like it could be better in some aspects, but in what ones, I'm not entirely sure. I still really like Future Redeemed and the things it did, but something about it pokes the back of my head, like something else should have been here. It's weird. But enough of that. I mentioned a second thing happening that buffed up June's game completion rate, right? Well, one day, after hopping onto my laptop, I got into a voice chat with two of my good friends. One of them was playing a game and streaming it for the other to watch. Common occurrence. The game in question, though, was Puyo Puyo 15th Anniversary. I asked why he was playing the game, to which he responded that he was on a Puyo Puyo training arc, since the friend he was streaming the game to was very good at Puyo. Let's just say, I got a bit inspired, and decided to follow my friend's footsteps and strengthen my own skills. The first game in that training arc was Puyo Pop Fever. This game was pretty simple, and a decent one for me to get started with. One of the few Puyo Puyo games to be released into the West. It has an English dub, which is a thing.
Hey, you there, in the deathly uncool clothes.
Get real! Who are you calling uncool?
On the contrary, just who are you calling uncool?
Despite this being a decent game to start with and a journey to heighten skills, its final level made me want to hit something. That goddamn cat.
Shooting star.
Anyway, my one real complaint was that at times I couldn't really see which one was the blue Puyo between it and the purple one. And not gonna lie, it kinda screwed me over at times. But despite that, I got through the game with not too many issues. I wasted no time jumping onto the sequel, Puyo Pop Fever 2, which was much better. I can actually see the purple Puyo, this is great!
There's really not that much of a difference. What was I talking about?
Anyway, this game is the formal introduction for a lot of beloved characters, like Sig and Lemris, as well as my favorite ghost twins, Hugh and Ray. This story was intriguing and fun, and all of the routes were either humorous or just casually dropping huge lore like, huh? What do you mean that's why Sig's arm is whack? What do you mean who shall not be named is possessed? The cat isn't here, thankfully, so one of my demons is gone, but Klug is a bit of a bitch. In general, I found myself enjoying the sequel a lot more than the original, which is a shame since it didn't officially get released in the West. Maybe one day. Anyway, I was supposed to start 15th Anniversary, but I was reminded of a different game one afternoon, and so I decided to play it instead. That game was Puyo Puyo 2 for the SNES. It was on SNES Online, so I literally beat it in an afternoon. It was fine. Except for So Daimo. Why? Why are you so hard? This elephant took me so long to beat, and you'd think that maybe it's to ramp you up for the next fights? No! I beat the last fights first try! They were easier than the elephant, and they were supposed to be the final bosses! What? Anyway, the game was fun, and if you'd want to go through what feels like a boot camp, I'd recommend it. It definitely polished my skills, for better or worse. Now then, enough about colorful gummies that somehow have teleportation magic. Time to change my brain chemistry. Judgment. The first spin-off game in the greater RGG world I got to play, taking place in between Yakuza 6 and Like a Dragon. And this game absolutely blew me away. For starters, our protagonist, Takayuki Yagami, was such a breath of fresh air compared to Kiryu. Well, he's similar to the Dragon of Dojima in terms of helping others and having a strong moral code. Yagami is, well, a detective. Not our first detective protagonist, mind you, but unlike Kiryu, who's a walking living legend, Yagami is just your ordinary guy in comparison. And yet, he's just as complex. Personally, I also related Yagami's struggles throughout the game, which definitely made the character more likable for me. Gameplay-wise, he's super fun as well, with 2 new styles and new moves that make Yagami a lot more agility-focused than Kiryu. These gameplay changes were so great, I had to alter my approach to fights entirely. You aren't Kiryu anymore, and I find that to be a good thing. Doing this through gameplay and character development made Yagami such an impactful character and protagonist. Of course, he's not the only character here. The entire main cast is memorable, and Yagami's allies mesh with him in so many different and fun ways. There were a couple of things that were annoying, but felt like they fit, like mortal wounds, but some stuff were things I could go without, like the Keihin gang, as well as the goddamn thumb turn blocks. And while sub-stories were gone in exchange for side cases, there was also this friendship mechanic that I really enjoyed. It just made the city feel alive since there was something going on in almost every building and corner of Kamurocho. The story though, oh the story! I don't even want to talk about it, it's that good. Twists, turns, silly moments, grand reveals, all of it is so well done! Overall, this game is fantastic, and it did the one thing I didn't think would happen at this point. It dethroned Yakuza 0 as my favorite RPG game. Considering when I played that game and the impact it had on me, that is extremely high praise. And if I had to somehow add Judgment to the now RGG sandwich, the game would be a very good sandwich. With a little sandwich sun! So, the next RGG game that I wanted to play was the longest game in the series. After beating Judgment in 2 weeks, I needed a quick break. So I picked up and beat A Short Hike. Needless to say, I played this game at the right time. A Short Hike hit me really hard, and I won't go into why. But if you've been to the top of the mountain, you might have a bit of an idea. Regardless of my insides being torn out and reassembled, A Short Hike definitely did its intended job. It was a super cozy game, an absolute pleasure to play. I'd love to give this game another playthrough someday. I won't talk much more about it because it really is best experienced blind. If you want something cozy for an afternoon of good vibes, I can't recommend this game enough. That rounds out the first half of the year. June was pretty crazy, wasn't it? Not to mention we still have the second half of the year, covering the back half of summer, as well as the winter season. What games will I beat? Will I complete my Yakuza Sprint in time for Gaiden? Will I get better at Puyo Puyo? Will I finally play Scrimblow Bimbo? I guess you'll have to find out next time.